Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Information Literacy. This is day 8. This will be the final day that has an actual sway involved. So again, make sure that you watch the sway that I already posted for today. You also got a handout today. Make sure you go over it. It has some transitional expressions that will help you later in your classes. I don't go over it too much in this class, but eventually what will happen is your professors will actually require transitions throughout your paper, so that's why I gave you that extra work. So many of you start to panic when you start doing your paper, and I understand that too, because the reality is a little bit different than something that you've been used to. But don't give up, persevere, fight through it, right? Because that's what's going to get you to that next level. Remember that if in any class that you're very comfortable, you're not learning anything. So the truth is, when you're learning something, you're going to be agitated, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just normal, right? So just don't give up. I also want to talk about, there is an email issue that has been coming up. A couple students have emailed me papers, and they've even shown me the screenshot showing that they've emailed their papers to me using the student email system somehow in NU. And it's not working. For some students, it's not coming to me, and it's not even going to my spam. So again, make sure that when you email stuff to me, that you email it to my gmail.com address, because I do get those pretty regularly, and I haven't had too many problems with it. So again, just something that you need to be aware of. When I receive one of your papers, when I download it, I actually send you an email back, like a response saying that I got it. So the rule is, if you don't get an email from me saying that I got it, I didn't get it. So you need to send it again, some other method, until you get that up. Okay, today is actually about revision. Now keep in mind, I was you, so I understand, especially towards the end of the class, you're writing this draft all week, and you get tired of it. And so basically you just say, I'm done, I'm not looking at it anymore, and you turn in something that's really not complete. And again, the goal here is to try to get you to that next level where you're going to get A's. This is what the revision process is all about. Now keep in mind, revision is obvious when I'm reading a paper from a student that doesn't read their own work, because there's so many errors that creep up. The point is, you have to plan for the time to do this revision, especially when it's going to be in something like, for example, your bachelor's thesis, or anything that's going to be a little bit more detailed, like a doctorate or a master's thesis, right? But it does take time. Make sure you go over the sway, and it'll give you some details. I don't want to give you everything here. So again, this takes time, the revision process, and you got to do it. You really do. It will help your grades. Next thing I wanted to talk about is a problem that people have when they do writing. Typically, what people tend to do is ramble, and they tell you all this stuff that nobody cares about and nobody needs to know. And that has to be cut from your paper. And I'm going to give you a story about something that my wife did to me. Basically, she walked me up to the refrigerator one day. I'm from Chicago, and I tend to think out loud, which tends to get me in a little bit of trouble sometimes. Because again, I'm not always thinking things through when I say it. I'm using my voice to think it through, but you don't do that in writing. You got to be done when you're writing. And basically, she walked me up, stuck my nose in a magnet that she gave me for the refrigerator. And this is what the magnet said. It says, my mouth does not have to spell out everything my brain thinks. And if you think about it, how much of the stuff that you expel from your mouth or write in your papers isn't worth the time and is useless information? This little saying actually helped me improve a great deal. Not only in my speaking and cognition and the things I talk about, but especially in my papers. So remember, you don't have to type everything you think. Once you decide on what the structure of your paper is, you keep to the stuff that's supposed to be in your paper, and you don't add stuff that's extraneous, right? Now, when you do the revision process, there's 3 ways that you can do it. Each one's a little bit different. Now, on one hand, I prefer the hard copy because I can draw little arrows. I can see the structural changes. I can kind of see everything pretty much at once. But it's different looking at a hard copy, which is what we're mostly used to, than looking at a computer, for example. The computer is pretty convenient because you can edit kind of as you go, sentence by sentence. But the problem with the computer is you don't tend to see the overall structural issues that you miss when you're forced to look at the actual copy of the paper. Because you could move rapidly back and forth. So again, play with those 2 methods. I use a mixture of both of them, and you work to your personal strengths. The last method, and this one is particularly particularly helpful for ESL students, because many times when ESL students, when they're writing stuff in English, they're doing the translation and so forth as they write. And what happens is the order of the words is correct in their native language, but it's not in English. And what happens is the paper actually becomes nonsensical. What that means is you got to start looking to make sure you have it right in English as well. But most people don't see their mistakes, especially if you just wrote your paper. You look at it, you're going to think everything's awesome, and it's just not, right? But if you have somebody read your paper to you aloud and just be quiet and listen to them, the interesting thing is, even for ESL students, typically you will hear your own mistakes. And again, this is a great way for you to kind of learn what stuff that you have to start changing to get to that academic level. So again, there's 3 methods to use. Play with them based on your personal strengths. And as you see from the sway, you have to make time to do this revision process. You can't do it right after you write the paper, because the truth is, you just won't catch the mistakes. I'll give you an example. Some of you have probably written a paper, say 5-10 years ago. And if you go back and read that same paper that you wrote, the interesting thing is most of us are horrified because we were very bad. But when you wrote it, you thought you were awesome, right? And again, I'm the same way, so it's not, it's just, this is something just happens. So again, when you do revision, plan for that time, particularly towards the end. That's what's going to make the difference between the A and B papers too. Again, because when I review papers, it's obvious when people don't revise, especially when I see all these spelling errors, and I'm just thinking, you're so lazy you can't hit right click and correct in Microsoft Word. That's another problem of using the non-standard software, because you think your paper is perfect, but a lot of the mistakes blow up in Microsoft Word with red squigglies all over the place. You do not want that to happen. So again, if you don't revise things, it's going to hurt your grade. Another thing that's in the sway today, we were talking a little bit about APA 7. Keep in mind, APA 7 has changed over APA 6, and it's increased the sensitivity to issues like gender, disabilities, ethnicity, and race. What it means, and I'm not going to tell you everything that's in this way, review the material there. The short of it is, when you're going to do a paper on these particular subjects, you may want to confer with your professor and see what language they prefer. Now, I prefer to go by the APA type stuff. That's the best way. But again, some of your professors may actually still be thinking in APA 6 or so forth, or they may be sensitive to these issues in a way that you could not understand. So that's why when you're doing these, I would recommend just, hey, professor, what would you rather use for my pronouns? Keep in mind, there's new pronouns coming out that are genderless and so forth, you know, from Harvard University, the they, she. So you're probably going to see those in the next iteration too. There's also some changes in APA 7. Finally, what I would focus on now, since hopefully you got me your draft, so I'm going to be going over those for the next couple of days, so you have a couple of days to do stuff. Catch up on all your work, turn in any missed work that you haven't done, and start doing your PowerPoint presentation using the same exact structure from the paper, right? Make it as professional as possible. Now again, in a way you're being hurt because you don't give the presentation. The process actually teaches you why this method works so well, right? And again, this is standard form for academic papers. So many of us panic when we have to do speaking, and I understand that, because I was you, and I used to be the person in the back of the room, and the only way you would get me to speak is if you grab me by the neck and squeeze hard. But it doesn't work. Now you can't shut me up, right? So the tricks that are in these videos are the same tricks that I use to learn how to speak. And once you learn how to speak, it's a skill that is very marketable too, because many people just refuse to want to speak in public. Keep in mind, I'm not going to force you. It's kind of one of those things. Watch Miss Emma's video. She's got some pretty good tips for speaking advice. And besides Miss Emma, there's the last video is a young lady that actually gives her story about speaking in confidence. She was in an accident and she hurt herself real bad, and you watch that video. I've had many people actually say that video changed their lives. So again, it's about actually overcoming some of the barriers that we have and stepping up to be able to do these speaks. So when you hear it, you'll understand it, but get ready for your Wonder Woman pose or your power pose, And before you do your presentations, do something to change your attitude going forward. So again, get me your late work as fast as possible. If I don't get your drafts by, say, Tuesday, I'm not going to be able to give feedback because we're running out of time right now. Keep in mind, everybody gets the points for the draft. It's not really about that. But the more you get me, the more that I can give you in feedback. You guys have a nice morning. I hope you're enjoying the class as much as possible. If you have any comments or feedback, please tell me, especially because I have changed this format based on what students like last term. They actually preferred this method of delivery. And if you have problems with it, let me know too, because I use your feedback every time because I want this class to be perfect for you. You guys have a nice day.